Then I got one more question for you. This time, we should have ended that one. That was a good one. Okay. The Hammerhead. With the Hammerhead release nearing pegged for 3.3, how do you plan to adapt the mission board so that missions, particularly combat-oriented ones, can scale in difficulty with ship sizes and capability? Are we going to allow some meaningful gameplay for these larger ships?
Okay. So balance, balance scaling, difficulty scaling, like but yeah, I accept this mission and I turn up in a Hammerhead and suddenly we've decided to spawn you bigger enemies, more enemies, whatever. That's not something we will be doing. What instead we'll be doing is just offering more difficult missions, like that people with lesser ships or fewer people in their ship, smaller groups would just not be able to compete in and complete. So that's the way we won't be balancing missions. We will be providing the kind of full array of difficulties, so that if we build a mission for a Hammerhead, like a fully loaded Hammerhead, but a group of 5 people in Hornets who are exceptional pilots want to try that, they can succeed, and get double the reward, double the risk, but double the reward should they complete it.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and this is the Piracy Show, the Hammerhead. The Hammerhead is going to have missions in 3.3. Yes! Now, before we really dig into this, before we really get started, I have to say that Ask the Devs has really become kind of my go-to show for Star Citizen content. That show, I think, has become the show where I feel that in terms of information that you're getting as a player, that seems to be where we're getting the most value right now, because it's the more informative stuff. This is what we're going for. This is what we're aiming for. These are the difficulties that we may encounter. I often find that that's the most important show of the week now, even compared to RTV or ATV. I often find that Ask the Devs is the thing that I go to first, and I really enjoy that show. And hopefully, as they are making changes, this is something that is locked in as this is a show that we have to do, because it has been probably one of the best shows that they have ever created. Now, the Hammerhead is a ship that is, of course, viewed quite favorably amongst a number of pirates in the Star Citizen universe. There are a number, quite a number of pirate Hammerheads out there, and there's a lot of excitement around this ship because it presents a number of possible solutions to some common pirate problems. Let's say you go down to a planet, you will have to go and pick up, let's say, a package or 2 packages or something like that. There's always that moment of weakness when you're there parked at the surface of a planet trying to pick up a package. You get out of your ship, someone else shows up for the same mission and starts shooting your ship. Well, if your ship is a Hammerhead and you have a crew aboard and they're sitting in the turrets, that becomes a much more daunting prospect. Also, the price of the Hammerhead kind of puts it into a league of its own. It makes it a much more difficult ship to reach for. So chances are more common ships like, let's say, the Cutlass or the Buccaneer will face a bit more of an issue trying to challenge a Hammerhead. And that advantage is something that I don't really think you can overstate. Also, there are currently some missions that I have found while experimenting with the Rudo missions for pirates that a Hammerhead would be kind of the ship that you would want to bring. There's often a mission that rewards 720 credits where you have to go and take somebody out, and sometimes the ship is an Aurora, sometimes the ship is a Cutlass, and on a couple of occasions now I've run into sometimes that ship is a Starfarer Gemini. Now, you would think that the Starfarer Gemini is is a fairly easy ship to deal with. And it is. You can circle it for quite some time and, kind of bring the shields down and start weakening the ship. But as I have now found out twice, if that top turret draws a bead on you right now, it can almost one-shot you. And it's quite devastating. There have been a couple of times where I've been like hit, and then just evaporated. And that's in a ship like the Cutlass. So it represents a bit of a challenge, whereas for a Hammerhead, I think it would shred through that ship a heck of a lot faster. But this does raise a couple of interesting questions. Now, when we got the Reclaimer, pilots of the Reclaimer will know that they were able to take control of pretty much all their guns except for the top turret. And that gave the Reclaimer some pretty hefty firepower. And we took the Reclaimer out and we did a few bounty missions with it. And it was slow and it was cumbersome to get that ship around. But all those guns focused on any ship that you were trying to destroy shredded those ships pretty hard and pretty fast. And of course, the Hammerhead has a much larger array of much more powerful guns. So suffice it to say, if the pilot of the Hammerhead is able to control those gimbaled weapons, it could possibly be very devastating. But there's also the possibility that CIG could say, no, what you can do is you can fly the ship and someone else will have to operate the guns, which kind of would necessitate some form of formal mission sharing and reward sharing within the game. Now, one of the features coming with 3.3 is, of course, enhancements to the service beacon system, so it's entirely conceivable that this is in there, or at least there's going to be some form of hiring a person and then keeping them on your ship for whatever amount of time, and they earn a certain amount of credits, per hour or per minute, however you want to work that out. And then it's up to you, the pilot, to then go out there and get the missions and get those rewards flowing so that you can absorb that cost as you're paying out to that player who's crewing your ship. And of course, a Hammerhead, that's going to be quite a number of players because there's quite a number of turrets. So hopefully the rewards will somehow kind of factor around the idea that chances are there's going to be multiple people crewing that Hammerhead and expecting rewards. Sorry for the hard video stutter right there. It's just part of the game. So one of the big challenges in seeing all this come together in 3.3, of course, is will the Hammerhead be ready? Well, for quite some time, CIG has been showing us work in progress videos of the Hammerhead as they have been bringing the ship into the game. And I think it's fairly obvious to just about anyone who remembers the concept sale that when they originally showed us the Hammerhead, it was obviously a ship that wasn't simply yet another concept, that this was a ship that was already in development, and many of us have said probably because it was going to be featured in Squadron 42. The next problem that you may run into with the Hammerhead, of course, is turret gameplay. Once again, the Hammerhead is a heavily turret-dependent ship, and turret gameplay certainly isn't where we would all like it to be. Obviously, I think CIG is aware of the issues surrounding turrets in the game, and I think bringing out a ship like the Hammerhead that is so heavily turret dependent, to have turret gameplay still in the shitter would be it would be such a disappointment to bring out such a great ship and then to have its key gameplay be so crappy right next to it. I mean, I have to think that there's got to be someone in CIG who is seriously looking at turret gameplay and saying, you know what, I think we really need to focus in on that. But then again, 3.3 is also a patch that is coming with refueling and gas clouds and the harvesting of, fuel. It's also bringing in salvage. There's a lot of things coming in 3.3. OCS is also coming, so it may not get the attention that it deserves just because, time is a limiting factor and you don't have an unlimited supply of it. Now, one of the things that I had hoped to do, but unfortunately in the current iteration of 3.2, hopefully very soon it'll be fixed because I'm, with the next patch, but weapon swapping is, I'll be generous and call it problematic currently in the game. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to get my Caterpillar, swap out the cannons that are on the turrets for something a little bit more operator friendly, like a Revenant Death Ballistic, or what is it, the new size 4 repeater, the Rhino, to put a couple of those on each of the turrets, because the Caterpillar is a much more stable platform, and I have to think that the Hammerhead would be a much more stable platform as well. Not something like a Cutlass where you're kind of dodging and circling around, where it might be more difficult for the operator of the turret to draw a bead on the target. But what I'm hoping is that if I can get the right cannons on the Caterpillar, that the Caterpillar might give me a bit more insight into what turret operation on the Hammerhead might be like, just based off of what it is in 3.2, and whether or not operating a turret from a much more stable platform helps things a little bit. And maybe turrets aren't so much an issue of what CIG is doing, but it might be that turrets are a bit of a mismatch on a ship like the Cutlass, that is kind of a much more mobile, much more nimble ship, and so it's a lot more difficult to use a turret on a ship like that, whereas a larger ship like a Caterpillar or a Hammerhead would be a much more stable platform to shoot from, making it a lot easier for the operator to draw a bead and hit the target. But that is, of course, something that is waiting for a future reset. So overall, the prospects of getting the Hammerhead in 3.3, I would say, barring some kind of disaster or a mistake, the Hammerhead is the most progressed of any of the ships currently in development for 3.3. So I think the Hammerhead is a lock. I don't think that there's any chance that that ship is going to miss 3.3. The fact that CIG is already talking about putting in missions of a certain difficulty and a certain reward level, obviously the Hammerhead is going to have something to do as well, which is really good. Now, hopefully those missions exist for pirates as much as they exist for the more law-abiding of you out there in the universe. The only real problems that I could foresee for the Hammerhead are turret gameplay and resource or reward sharing. Some kind of formal system to make sure that players are rewarded for their participation in the mission, so that players can also gain progress in the missions that they're completing. Let's say a pirate has, a Hammerhead, and they want to go out and they want to complete these missions and unlock higher tiers of missions. Another player who is assisting on those missions, I feel that there should also be a formal system in place so that they get credit for those missions as well, so that, let's say they go off on their own, they can then gain access to those higher tier missions as well. That would be a pretty cool thing to see. But once again, I guess we'll have to wait for 3.3. End of September, looking to be a really great time, especially for Hammerhead owners. Anyways, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.